Thank you. I want to make 2 points in the 5 minutes that I've definitely got, and that is these. Firstly, that I think for those of us who are on the left, this is a very, very difficult debate, that we're faced with a referendum which is very often posed as two sides of the Tory party, where you see two sets of right-wing arguments, where you see people talking about a lot about racism, a lot about the way in which they can actually make capitalism work better in this country. That is what the debate is all about. And for those of us on the left, we have a totally different agenda. And my opposition to the European Union is that it's totally undemocratic. You cannot elect your own government within it. The election of the European Parliament results in a body which is a kind of like an elected House of Lords. It can scrutinise, but it can't actually change anything. It is driving a neoliberal agenda, and we can see this in France, we see it in Greece, we will see it in Spain and Portugal at the end of June after this referendum and after the election in Spain, where there will be the same measures imposed on Spain and Portugal that we've seen already happening in Greece. And what you're finding across the continent is the race to the bottom, the getting rid of people's rights, the getting rid of conditions of work, the weakening of collective bargaining. All of that is going on at a pace. And the idea that somehow this is an institution which brought us workers' rights is something which is sickening, really. When you hear what the TUC say about it, it is a completely dishonest set of facts that they put forward. Because workers' rights in this country, including equal pay, the first strike for equal pay was the London women bus workers in 1918, and we finally got the law in 1970 before we joined the EU. This had to do with decades of campaigning and fighting and struggling and going out on strike. That was what it was about. And that is true for all of the gains that we've won in this country. And whether we're in the EU or not, the success of workers organising at work will depend on what we do, not on what governments give us. That is the lesson that we know going back 200 years inside the trade union and labour movement. But the second question I want to raise is this one about racism, because you cannot but feel disgusted at so much of the racism that is coming out in this campaign. When I saw the Leave campaign today, which has this, it says we have to leave the EU so we don't have a disaster like Orlando in this country, you know how low and despicable and disgusting these people are. But racism isn't just coming from one side in this campaign, it's coming from both sides. Gordon Brown today was blaming Albanian migrants, who Albania is not part of the EU and the majority of its population are Muslims, it's one of the poorest countries in Europe, was blaming Albanian migrants. What you're getting is a bidding war over who is going to be the more racist. So let's not fall for this. Let's not pretend that David Cameron, who after all, we're not voting for the EU as it exists, we're voting for his racist renegotiation, which is taking benefits away from migrants who come to this country. And why should we take any lessons from David Cameron, who led one of the most despicable racist campaigns against Sadiq Khan when he stood for Mayor of London? We should reject those kind of arguments for what they are. And we should also say this is about something else. What they are now facing up to is that millions of Labour voters are going to vote to leave the European Union. Now, this is very much a class question. You hear it when they say the majority of people who want to remain are people who are university educated and professional classes, and the people who don't are the despised C2s and Ds and Es. Actually, this is an argument about class as well as about everything else that is thrown into it. And what is going to happen if there is a vote to leave? They will turn round and say that all these working class people, millions and millions who vote to leave, they will say they're all UKIP supporters, they're all people who are racist, that it's all about immigration. It is not all about immigration, it is about people feeling that they don't have control over their lives, that they don't have any say, that they don't have any democracy in this country. And this is something which is going on across Europe. If you look at the latest Pew Research last week, researched 10 countries across Europe, it found a massive slump in support for the European Union. Yeah. In France, in Italy, in some of the longest standing member states of the European Union. And that is because people are fed up with austerity, they're fed up with what is happening. And I fear that actually one of the things the European Union is doing, it's not combating racism, it's driving racism with its policy over migrants, with the way in which it is allowing far-right parties in some countries to call the shots in what goes on. Final point I want to make is this. We cannot be fatalistic about this. Whatever happens after the 23rd of June, we know they've let the racist genie out of the bottle, and we have to have a massive campaign against racism, whatever position we took and whatever the end result is. We know they are going to enforce more austerity. We know they're going to attack working people. So we have to be prepared, and we have to say there is a left answer, there is a left voice, the left can be powerful and organised, and that is the key thing that we have to do in organising after June the 23rd.
Thank you, Lindsey.